early Greeks today, and we're going to look at some other ancient Mediterranean cultures. Now, when I say the Mediterranean, you guys know where the Mediterranean is, right? Yeah, Mediterranean is a Greek word. It means middle, between the land. So this is that sea here between land and land. Okay, that's why it's called the Mediterranean Sea. All right, now the first group we're going to talk about are called the Minoans. The Minoans. Minoans. They lived on a tiny, well, not tiny, but on an island named Crete. It's still there today. And Crete is in the Aegean Sea, just south of Greece. In fact, Crete is part of the present-day country of Greece. So if you are standing in Crete, you're in Greece. Now, the Minoans, like I said, they lived on the edge of the Aegean Sea, and they had a capital city called Knossos. Knossos. It's on the northern part of that island. We don't really know a whole lot about the Minoans. We don't. We don't even know if that's really what they even called themselves. We, through history, refer to them as the Minoans because we know what their king's name was. His name was King Minos. And so therefore we refer to these people as the Minoans. All right? Now, King Minos was an interesting guy. And there's a lot of stories written about King Minos. It was believed that he was a man that liked to collect interesting possessions. And one of the possessions that he owned was a minotaur. You guys know what a minotaur is? What's a minotaur? Can anybody describe it?
Like half man, half, I forget what it is.
Half man, half bull. It was believed that he owned one of these. And that's why it's called a minotaur, because it's named after King Minos. Minos, meaning King Minos, his name, minotaur. And then tar is like bull. A bull. All right? Is it true? I don't know. But that's the story. And when the story becomes legend, you print the legend. All right, now, as far as their religion goes, King Minos believed in like a Mother Earth goddess. A Mother Earth goddess. You ever heard of that expression, Mother Earth? Go take care of Mother Earth. That's King Minos. That's from the Minoans. Okay, because they believed that Minos believed in a Mother Earth goddess, and the way in which they worshipped the Mother Earth goddess is by sacrifice. Typically through animal sacrifice. The larger the animal, the more blood, the greater the sacrifice. So, bulls were often sacrificed, and other animals, as a way to worship their gods. And they would have special temples and altars, and they would do certain, have a big feast of the meat as a sacrifice to their gods. We're not entirely sure what happened to the Minoans. That's a pretty interesting group of people, cutting up animals, sacrifice, minotaurs walking around. Be kind of neat. So we're not entirely sure what happened to them. It could have been a natural disaster, being is that they live, on an island that's known for seismic activity. It could have been a volcano, could have been an earthquake, could have been a tidal wave, could have been disease. We're not entirely sure what happened to the Minoans, but they definitely did exist, and we know that their civilization ended mysteriously. They could have been invaded and just completely conquered and wiped out, and the people that conquered them left? We're not entirely sure. But the Minoans did exist, and then their civilization ended abruptly and mysteriously, either through natural disaster or through invasion. Okay? So questions on the Minoans? King Minos? I think that would be an interesting time period to go back to. All right? Another area is called Phoenicia, or the Phoenicians. Several areas made up the Phoenicians. But right here it's this part of the Mediterranean Sea, the eastern part of the Mediterranean Sea. This is where we're talking. Okay? That is like present day Lebanon, Israel. That's present day places. Okay? Maybe a little bit of Syria. So that's where the Phoenicians are. Now that's old, guys, because that's like pre-Hebrew, like before the Jews, like before Moses. That's a long time ago. Okay. Now the Phoenicians, they just much like on the island of Crete here, where the Minoans were, they made their civilization based on trade. Whereas a lot of other civilizations, theirs was based on agriculture. The Phoenicians were really one of the first ones to base their entire civilization on trade. Okay? A lot of that has to do with their geography, where they're located on the Mediterranean Sea. And you can see all the other places where they can trade. Trade with Egypt, trade with Carthage, trade with Italy, Greece, Spain, all kinds of different places that they can access on the Mediterranean Sea and engage in seaport trade. So, like I said, it's present-day Lebanon, Israel, Syria, and their civilization was entirely based on trade. Now, what kind of trade are they doing? Like, how are they getting stuff from one place to the other? Boats. Do you think they made pretty good boats? They were excellent ship builders. Very good ship builders. This is kind of an example of a ship that you might see one of the Phoenicians make. It looks pretty simple, and it is, because it's, imagine doing this 5,000 years ago, which is roughly around the time that they would have been engaging in this seaport trade. So they're remarkable shipbuilders that they used to do trade all over the Mediterranean. What kind of items do you think were their main source of trade? What did they trade the most? What kind of items, goods? Well, you would think fish, but are they going to trade fish with other seaport places where they could probably catch their own? Probably not. But I get where you're going. I mean, you see that they're on the sea, they're probably going to be fishermen. And they are. But everybody else is fishermen too, because they're all on the seaport. All right? Who else? What else might they want to trade? You think it's cheap or expensive to get items from one place to another 5,000 years ago? How many of you guys would be willing to get on a boat 5,000 years ago and sail across the Mediterranean Sea, I don't know, just 400 or 500 miles? No? Why not? Dangerous? It's scary? What makes it so dangerous and scary? Okay, the Mediterranean is well known to be a dangerous sea. It's very dangerous. It's choppy. It's not very calm usually. Also, seismic activity is pretty common in this region. Earthquakes may not sound like a big deal in the ocean, but what can they cause? Tsunamis, tidal waves. All right. So yeah, that's dangerous. What else? What else is dangerous about this? Obviously, your boat could just have a hole in it because it was made 5,000 years ago. What else?
Might get lost.
Okay, navigation could be challenging. What else? Do you think that? So we talked about the Phoenicians being, they made their living as trade. Do you think that there are like nomadic people who make their living? Oh, I don't know, finding other ships on the sea and just killing the people on board. Pirates? Yeah, yeah, there were pirates. Not like Johnny Depp and stuff. Okay, that's like 1700s pirates, but they were still doing the same type of thing. I'm gonna go out in the open sea and attack people who I see and take their stuff to make money for myself. Okay, kind of like nomads on the water. All right. So it's very dangerous. And so now that being said, if you're a Phoenician shipper, you wanna be able to make it worth your while whenever you trade. So do you think the items they're going to trade are going to be valuable to make it worth their time and money? Absolutely. So some of the things that you would see the Phoenicians trade are things like what this gentleman in the top left's holding in his hand. And it's not just the glass, it's what's in it. Oil. Very good. What else might be in that cask? Wine. Wine, fruit of the vine. Wine was a very valuable commodity. All right. Anything else? Weapons. You guys know what these are? They're not spoons. It's precious metals. Gold, silver. At that point, you know the most precious metal on the planet 5,000 years ago? Steel. Steel. Because steel was not naturally found. It had to be made. Steel was actually more valuable than gold. Not so anymore, because we're really good at making steel. Well, not us, but other places are. Okay? You have precious metals, used for currency and things, jewelry and things of that nature. You know what this is? It's a piece of art, but what's it made of? You know what this material is? It shows a boat and people working on a boat. But what is it? What is its material? It's pretty valuable and actually illegal to possess today.
Ivory.
Ivory, very good. What is ivory? Elephant tusks. Yeah. So it was valuable back then too, because you can only get it from one place. Elephants. And this was pre-firearms. So I want you to imagine trying to kill an elephant with a sharpened stick or a bow and arrow. Yeah, exactly. You deserve to get paid, right? Yeah. All right, so ivory, very expensive. Okay. Another thing, very valuable, slaves. Slaves, people who conquered people, and they would ferry them about in order to make money. Slaves. And it did not matter. I don't want you to think that along the Mediterranean, your race did not matter in terms of slavery. It didn't matter. If you were conquered or if you owed somebody a bunch of money, you could be a slave. All right? So the Phoenicians, known for ferrying this stuff all over the ancient world throughout the Mediterranean area. Okay? Now, as these are businessmen, and they're businessmen, aren't they? That's what they do for a living. They transport things around. Do you think they needed to write stuff down from time to time? Okay, they did. And so they had to create a way of keeping records, a system of writing. And they do something that no other civilization had done before. What were some other languages that existed at this time? Written languages. Okay, the Indians had Sanskrit. They didn't know much about that yet. But you're right, the Sanskrit did exist. What else? Hieroglyphics in Egypt. They definitely knew about Egyptian hieroglyphics because Egypt is on the Mediterranean Sea. All right, what else? Cuneiform, which came from, a little bit east, kind of down in Mesopotamia. So be here. So just like a couple hundred miles to the east. They definitely knew about cuneiform. But there were some drawbacks to those written languages. Like, what does Egyptian hieroglyphics look like? Pictures. You got to draw a picture in order to write something down. It takes a long time, and sometimes it's difficult to do. But these guys are traders. They need to, hey, like, oh, you need 15 casks of wine. Boo, okay, got it. I'll have it to you next week. All right, and then they're gone. They can go. It's quicker. They can move faster, more efficient, make better money. And so they needed a method of writing that would be more efficient. And so they actually created the very first ever alphabet. What's an alphabet? Letters that make words, and the words that make sentences, and sentences make ideas. Correct? Okay. So, take a look at that. Do any of those characters look similar? Yeah. Look at the Phoenician letters. And then obviously here's at the bottom we have our English letters. So as you can see, the Phoenicians came before the Greeks. Or early Greeks and later Greeks. And you can see how the Greeks borrowed from the Phoenicians, and we borrowed from the Greeks. Okay? So it's just a little bit about, just kind of the evolution of some of the letters of our alphabet. They only had 22 characters in the Phoenician alphabet. How many do we have? 26. All right, so what I want you to do, you see this is the 22 characters of the Phoenician alphabet. I want you to write your name using these characters as best you can. As best you can, okay? So I'll leave that up there.